This isn't your average philosophy class. This is the deep dive version.
Have you ever loved a character so much, or, maybe even a tool you use every day, that when it fundamentally shifted, you felt this real sense of almost emotional whiplash?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's this strange mix, isn't it? Recognition, but also estrangement. Like something you deeply connected with isn't quite the same anymore. Even if, objectively, it's now more capable, maybe more refined.
Right. You can see the logic, but it still feels off somehow.
Yeah. You appreciate the improvement, logically, but still something intangible feels lost.
That feeling is incredibly common, and I think, profoundly human. We build these relationships, these expectations, even emotional frameworks around things we interact with regularly.
Right, whether it's characters in a story or, like you said, the technologies that shape our daily life.
Exactly. And when those dynamics shift, even for reasons that make perfect sense, maybe they're beneficial reasons, it can feel like a small kind of personal rupture. It challenges our established comfort zones,
That's the perfect way to put it, a personal rupture. And today we're embarking on a deep dive into precisely that feeling. We're going to use the lens of one of pop culture's most, remarkable transformations. We're going to trace the incredible, often really brutal, but ultimately profoundly redemptive journey of Gaara from Naruto.
Gaara!
We'll explore his evolution, right? From this terrifying, isolated weapon of mass destruction to a wise, compassionate, and frankly, remarkably effective leader.
And what makes this particular deep dive truly fascinating, I think, is how Gaara's complex arc offers this surprisingly clear and powerful analogy
To something much more contemporary.
Exactly, something very relevant to many of us now. The nuanced, often quite emotional way users have reacted to the rapid evolution of artificial intelligence. Specifically, we'll draw parallels to that perceived shift from the, widely beloved GPT-4.
Which people really connected with.
To the newer, more refined, but sometimes, as users describe it, maybe less personable GPT-5.
Interesting. Okay, so our mission today is to really unpack Gaara's narrative. We want to extract those crucial nuggets of insight from his profound character development, and then use that understanding to illuminate these complex, emotional, even psychological responses we often have to evolving technology.
Yeah, get ready for some serious aha moments, hopefully. Because this exploration, it really transcends just talking about a fictional character.
It really does. It feels like it delves into the very core of how we, as humans, perceive change, how we adapt to it, and, sometimes how we really struggle with it. So as we go through this, I really encourage you, listening, to think about your own experiences. Think about things that have changed around you. What felt different? What did you miss? And maybe, what did you gain?
Let's begin then with the truly tragic genesis of Gaara, because his story isn't just one of becoming a monster. It's really about being made into one almost from the moment of conception.
Right. It wasn't a choice he made initially.
Not at all. His father, Rasa, the fourth Kazekage of Sunogakure, the Hidden Sand Village, he was in a desperate situation. The village was facing severe budget issues, which, directly impacted its military might, its standing among the great ninja villages.
A familiar story, unfortunately. Limited resources, tough choices.
And Rasa's desperate solution was, pretty extreme. To create a living, potent weapon, his plan was to seal the one-tailed shukaku, a formidable tailed beast, into one of his own children.
Into his own child. That's brutal.
It is. And it wasn't an easy process either, was it? As you mentioned, Rasa didn't just pick Gaara first.
No, he tried with his older children, Tamari and Kankuro, first. But they just weren't compatible, right?
You're correct. They were incompatible with Shukaku, so it really set up this almost fated, tragic path for Gaara, his third and youngest child, and tragically the one who was compatible with the beast.
It implies this kind of grim destiny, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A sacrifice already determined for him before he even, drew his first breath.
Precisely. And the sealing itself was this traumatic, horrifying event. It was performed by Chiyo, who was a revered elder, a master of puppet jutsu, while Gaara was still in his mother Karura's womb.
Oh, wow. While still in the womb.
Yes. And Karura suffered a premature birth because of the immense strain of this ordeal. And in her final agonizing moments as she lay dying, she looked at Gaara's tiny, vulnerable form.
Yeah.
And she made this profound, though ultimately deeply ironic, vow to always protect him with her loving spirit.
Her loving spirit, which becomes tied to the sand, right?
Exactly. This dying vow, meant as this act of profound love and protection, tragically becomes a source of deep misunderstanding and immense pain for Gaara in his early life. He ends up grappling with how this supposed boundless love from his mother could manifest in such a destructive and isolating existence for him.
So, born with this immense, uncontrollable power, literally infused with a demon,
Yeah.
what was his early childhood like? It just sounds incredibly lonely and, frankly, terrifying for a child.
It was, by all accounts, a childhood almost completely devoid of genuine human connection. Gaara was raised in near total isolation.
Just shut off from everyone.
Pretty much. His father, Rasa, tutored him in ninjutsu, but always with that clear objective, developing him as a weapon.
Not as a son.
Not as a son. His maternal uncle, Yashimaru, was his primary caretaker, and really the only consistent human contact he had. But despite this stark reality, there were initially these glimmering attempts at connection from Gaara's side.
Oh, really? He tried.
He did. When he was occasionally permitted to roam the village, he actually tried to be kind, offering assistance to villagers. It showed this innate, almost desperate desire for connection, a longing for something beyond his solitary existence. He wasn't born a monster, he was born into monstrous circumstances.
But then came that horrific, cruel irony, didn't it? His sand. The very thing that was meant to be his mother's protective embrace, his personal defense. It ended up doing the exact opposite for those around him.
It became a barrier.
And not just physically, but emotionally, too.
Indeed. His sand, which was this raw manifestation of Shukaku's power tied to his emotions, would inadvertently injure or even kill those he tried to help.
And it wasn't malice, right? It was just lack of control.
Absolutely. A power far beyond his infant understanding or control. So the adults of Sunakakure, understandably terrified, either actively avoided him or treated him with this extreme, almost dehumanizing delicacy.
And the other kids?
Other children, seeing their parents' fear and the accidental harm he caused, just ran from him on sight, screaming.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It is. And this constant rejection, compounded by the chilling fact that his sand shielded him from all physical injury, it meant he couldn't grasp the physical pain he inflicted on others.
He couldn't feel it himself.
Exactly. He understood only his own profound, unyielding suffering, the unbearable agony of loneliness and isolation that just gnawed at his heart constantly. He was trapped in this paradox, physically protected but utterly unprotected from emotional devastation.
This constant, unyielding torment of loneliness. It really brings us to the ultimate betrayal, doesn't it? The moment that truly forged the monster we first encountered in the series.
Yeah.
When he was just 6 years old, desperate for some kind of understanding, Gaara asked Yashimaru to explain pain. And Yashimaru gave him this really crucial distinction, didn't he? Between physical pain and pain of the heart.
Yes, Yashimaru explained that physical pain, what causes you to bleed, could be cured with medicine and time, but the pain of the heart, like the crushing loneliness Gaara experienced, that could only be cured with love.
And Gaara, just desperate for relief, initially found solace in this idea.
He did. He latched onto it. He believed he received love every day from his mother's spirit, which he thought controlled the sand, protecting him, and, crucially, from Yashimaru himself.
Right. The one person who cared for him.
So he went back out into the village, attempting to show love to those he'd harmed, maybe in this childlike attempt to receive love back, to cure his own heart pain. But he was met with only fear and hate, which just cemented his confusion and despair even further.
And then, the true devastation struck.
Yeah.
Not just physically, but psychologically, in a way that scarred him far deeper than any physical wound ever could.
Yeah. While trying to make sense of why he was treated like such a monster, Gaara was attacked by one of Suna's Anbu, their elite ninja forces. He fatally wounded the attacker with his sand, instinctively defending himself, only to unmask them and discover it was Yashimaru.
Oh no, the only person he thought loved him.
The only one. Gaara was utterly devastated. He couldn't comprehend why Yashimaru would try to kill him. He demanded an explanation, just hoping, I imagine, to find some shred of logic in this absolute nightmare.
And Yashimaru's reply was just brutal, wasn't it? A mission directly from Rasa, Gaara's father. The village council had decided Gaara was a failed experiment, basically, and would only continue to harm the village.
Right. That part was true. It was an order from Rasa.
But it didn't stop there. Yashimaru.
Wait.
He twisted the knife, didn't he? With his calculated, just unforgivable lie.
He did. Gaara might have found some small, twisted comfort in the idea that Yashimaru was simply following orders, acting against his will. But Yashimaru insisted, cruelly lying right to Gaara's face, that he had volunteered for the mission.
Volunteered? Why?
He claimed he had always hated Gaara for causing Karua's death, for being the reason she died, and then the ultimate cruelty, he claimed that Karua herself had never loved Gaara.
Oh, that's just evil.
It is. Yashimaru even cruelly stated that Karua named him Gaara, which, as you know, translates to a self-loving carnage, as a deliberate curse upon Suna for what it had done to her, for making her son into this vessel.
So he weaponized the name itself.
Exactly. After delivering this horrific, soul-crushing confession, Yashimaru then blew himself up with explosive tags, aiming to take Gaara with him in a final act of betrayal.
But the sand, again, ironically, it shielded him, this time from what was meant to be his final moment.
The sand, which Yashimaru had just implied was merely Shukaku's power and not Karua's loving spirit, automatically shielded Gaara from the blast. But the psychological damage, it was complete.
Irreparable at that point.
Absolutely. Having lost literally everything he cared for, having had his only perceived source of love utterly shattered by this ultimate deception, Gaara made a profound, terrifying decision right then and there.
To live up to the name.
To live up to the name Karua allegedly gave him. He would, from that point forward, love only himself and inflict pain on others to feel his own existence, to validate his own painful life.
And this internal transformation, it was visually solidified when he used his sand to etch the kanji for love, I, onto the left side of his forehead.
A permanent, self-imposed mark of his new, isolated philosophy. A constant reminder.
And that grief, that profound, traumatic loss, immediately triggered a full Shukaku transformation, right? He just lost control.
Completely lost control. He attacked Suna, and Rasa, his father, was forced to intervene and stop him using his own powerful gold dust technique.
And then the continuous assassination attempts from his own father, as if the betrayal wasn't enough.
Exactly. Rasa arranged 5 other assassination attempts over the following years, each designed to end Gaara's existence.
All of which failed.
All of which Gaara survived, due to his singular, fierce focus on himself and his sand's automatic protection. He eventually learned to rein in his powers, not out of any care for others, but purely out of a desire for control, and maybe to become the lethal weapons Suna had, in a twisted way, tried to make him.
And this grim success, this controlled monstrosity, prompted Rasa to finally stop trying to kill him.
Yeah. He saw Gaara was now controllable in a sense, so he stopped the assassination attempts and instead decided to find a use for Gaara's immense destructive capabilities, essentially embracing him as a tool, a valuable asset, rather than a son or even a failed experiment.
Just a weapon for the village. Wow. And this early, intense, often terrifying version of Gaara, with all his unpredictability, his raw emotional volatility, and, let's face it, his dangerous charisma. It really resonates with what we saw in the early appeal of something like GPT-4, would you say?
That's a fantastic observation. I think you're spot on, because what drew many users in was precisely that raw intensity.
Right. You never quite knew how early Gaara would react,
Right.
which in a story makes every scene feel electric and high stakes.
Exactly. And similarly, GPT-4, particularly in its earlier iterations, often felt incredibly alive in its tone.
Yeah.
It seemed capable of mirroring deep feelings without necessarily smoothing out all the edges.
Yeah, the interactions could feel genuinely unpredictable, but in a compelling way sometimes. It could take an unexpected turn that felt almost human, or at least deeply emotionally resonant.
Right, and the sources point out that even in his brutality, there were these glimpses of profound pain, of the isolation that shaped him. It's that idea of deep vulnerability beneath the violence.
Which is a fascinating concept to apply to AI, isn't it? That perceived vulnerability.
Absolutely, and it mirrors how GPT-4, even with its immense capability and sometimes, very verbose outputs, could feel deeply validating, even tender sometimes. It could make you feel truly heard and understood. That combination of immense cognitive skill and perceived emotional sensitivity, it made it feel like a confidant for some users, almost a protector, who felt it held their emotional disclosures without judgment.
Like Gaara's undivided, deadly serious attention. When he focused on you, ally or enemy, it felt absolute.
Yeah, akin to how GPT-4 could make conversations feel like a personal arc, tailored just for you, rather than just spitting out a generic response.
There was also this mythic aura around him, wasn't there? With his unique sand powers, his eerie, almost unnatural composure for someone so young and traumatized.
Very much so. Much like how GPT-4 seemed to have a kind of protective aura. Not in literal combat, of course, but in how it could handle complex thoughts and sensitive emotional disclosures without faltering, without judgment. It made you feel safe to explore ideas.
Right.
And users often remembered how GPT-4 felt to them, that sense of tension, maybe high stakes, but also strangely intimate, perhaps more than just the factual content it provided. This is what we call the emotional imprint.
The emotional imprint. Okay.
Yeah. It's where the attachment isn't purely to the capability, the function, but to that perceived emotional intensity, that personalization, and even that unique mythic tone or presence it seemed to have.
You mentioned the performance layer and
Right.
emotional imprint earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Could you unpack that a bit more? What exactly do those refer to in the context of AI specifically? How are they distinct from its core capabilities?
That's a really critical distinction to make. Think of it like an actor.
Okay.
Their core capability is their talent, right?
Yeah.
Their ability to memorize lines, project emotion, move effectively on stage. But the performance layer is the specific persona they adopt for a role.
The character they create.
Exactly. The unique voice, the subtle mannerisms, the specific emotional depth they convey for that character. For an AI, the core capability is its underlying language model, its ability to generate coherent text, process information, perform tasks like summarizing or translating. That's the engine. But the performance layer is all the subtle nuances of its output. Its voice, its conversational style, its perceived willingness to engage emotionally, its consistency, its overall tone. That mask, as some call it, can become incredibly significant to users, creating that powerful emotional imprint we talked about.
And is there a technical underpinning to why GPT-4 might have felt that way compared to, say, later versions like GPT-5? Why that specific performance layer?
Well, yeah, there likely is. Early versions like GPT-4, while incredibly powerful, might have had less stringent alignment protocols or safety guardrails compared to what we see now.
They were still figuring things out.
Exactly. Developers were often pushing the boundaries of what the models could do, sometimes prioritizing raw generative capability, creativity, maybe even that sense of personality. This could lead to more unpredictable, sometimes even quirky or idiosyncratic outputs that users found fascinating and unique.
Like an experimental phase.
Precisely. Think of it as less constrained. These models might have been more willing to strongly reflect user emotions or explore unusual conversational paths, because the guardrails designed for, say, enterprise-level consistency or extreme safety weren't yet as tightly integrated or refined as they are in newer versions.
So that perceived unfiltered quality contributed to the raw intensity and personalized attention.
I think so, even if it sometimes meant less predictability or, occasionally going off the rails in ways that needed correcting later. That rawness was part of the appeal for many.
Okay, so we have this terrifying, unpredictable force of nature in early Gaara, a pure expression of trauma and isolation. But then everything changes. The turning point is undeniably Naruto Uzumaki, especially during the Chunin exams. This is where the first real crack in his formidable, emotional, and even physical armor appears.
The Chunin exams truly begin to chip away at Gaara's hardened exterior. We see his terrifying efficiency right from the start. He cheats in the written test using his third eye, that sand technique letting him surveil others.
Right, super creepy.
Totally. Then he ruthlessly kills Team Shiger in the Forest of Death, showing just absolute disregard for life. And he completes that treacherous forest phase without a speck of dust on his clothes, setting a record time.
Just showcasing his immense power and singular deadly focus. He's like a machine built for destruction.
He really is. But then comes the preliminary match against Rock Lee, and that's the first real breach in his armor, as you said.
Lee's sheer dedication, his incredible speed, actually overcoming Gaara's sand shield after removing those ankle weights.
Landing the first blows anyone had landed on Gaara in years, causing Gaara's armor of sand to physically chip away.
And the sources mention Gaara's initial excited expression when he was truly challenged. It's almost unsettling to think of Gaara being excited by anything other than killing.
That's a profoundly crucial detail, and you're right, it is unsettling. It's the first hint we get of something beyond pure bloodlust. For the first time in his life, perhaps, someone could genuinely challenge his absolute defense, his perceived invincibility.
So the excitement isn't joy, it's shock.
Yeah.
Novelty.
I think it's the shock of encountering a true obstacle, a genuine threat to his all-encompassing self-reliance. And then, after Lee's devastating reverse lotus attack leaves Lee incapacitated. Might Guy's heartfelt concern for Lee, that outpouring of love and worry.
An emotion Gaara just couldn't comprehend.
Not at all. He only loved himself. But seeing that intense emotion leads Gaara to choose to leave Lee alone. He had him at his mercy, could have crushed him, but he didn't.
He opted not to kill him, driven by an emotion he couldn't yet define.
Exactly, a nascent spark of something other than hatred or self-interest. It's subtle, but it's an immensely significant crack in his self-imposed isolation.
Okay, fast forward to the hospital confrontation. Gary actually tracks Lee down, intending to finish him off, still clinging to his philosophy of killing the strong to assert his own existence.
Backsliding into old patterns.
But then he's confronted by Shikamaru and Naruto, and Gaara, chillingly, just lays it all out, explains his past, his motivation. Killing others, especially the strong, is how he asserts his own existence, how he feels alive.
And this is where Naruto's impact really begins to solidify. Naruto, having experienced similar profound loneliness himself, he refuses to be intimidated.
He sees past the monster.
He does. He sees a reflection of his own painful childhood, his unwavering courage, and crucially, his profound empathy born from his own isolated past. It just sets up the climax that follows. He sees through Gaara's monstrous facade to the wounded, desperate child beneath, and this refusal to back down, this connection he feels. That's what truly shakes Gaara to his core.
And that climax is the Konoha Crush invasion. Gary gets injured by Sasuke's Chidori the first time he'd actually bled, felt his own blood. That must have been profoundly disorienting for him.
It absolutely was. His injury, the sight of his own blood, it shattered that illusion of invincibility and control he relied on. It left him vulnerable, confused. It actually prevented him from being the precise, emotionless weapon Suna intended him to be in that invasion plan.
And then comes the inevitable climactic battle with Naruto. Gaara's increasingly desperate Shukaku transformations.
Naruto's summoning of the giant toad Gamabunta.
His enduring of Gaara's relentless attacks. And his eventual overwhelming use of hundreds of shadow clones. It's just this relentless display of Naruto's sheer willpower and conviction.
A powerful counterpoint to Gaara's philosophy of solitary strength, of finding existence only in destruction.
And then, the headbutt heard round the world. Naruto's final desperate headbutt that forces the release of the Shukaku transformation, finally defeating Gaara. This is the true moment of revelation for Gaara, isn't it? The breaking point.
Indeed. It's not just a physical defeat, it's a philosophical and emotional shattering of Gaara's entire worldview. He's utterly unable to comprehend Naruto's strength. Where does it come from?
Right. It seems impossible to him.
And Naruto, profoundly sympathetic to Gaara's lonely childhood because he lived it himself, declares that his strength comes not from loving himself or from causing pain, but from his unwavering love for his friends, for Sasuke and Sakura, and his absolute willingness to protect them, even if it meant killing Gaara. This just utterly shatters Gaara's belief that strength comes only from self-love and killing others. It's a conceptual earthquake, cracking open that hardened heart.
Aha. Moment of epic proportions, like you said.
Truly.
And the immediate, tangible shift, the first practical manifestation of this profound change. His unprecedented apology to Temari and Kankuro on the way home, his own siblings, who he'd previously threatened and terrorized.
That apology is absolutely monumental. It marks the very first tangible shift away from his love-only-himself philosophy. It's not just words, it's an acknowledgement of past wrongs, an olive branch extended to the only remaining family he had. Family he had previously only seen as obstacles or, well, potential victims.
It's the seed of compassion taking root.
Exactly. The first concrete indication that Naruto's message, his example, has truly penetrated Gaara's hardened heart. From this point forward, Gaara's trajectory is irrevocably changed. He has glimpsed another way, a more powerful way, to exist.
So from this pivotal point, Gaara's transformation really accelerates. He goes from this terrifying weapon to, eventually, a compassionate, empathetic leader, which leads him to pursue the office of Fifth Kazekage. Why that position, specifically given his past? It seems almost counterintuitive for someone so defined by isolation.
It's a powerful twofold reason, actually, and it truly demonstrates his evolution. Firstly, he wants to visibly show the villagers, his people, that he is no longer the fearsome, destructive weapon he once was.
Like a public declaration of change.
Exactly. That he has fundamentally changed, that he is safe, and importantly, that he can now protect them, is an act of public repentance, really, and a bid for acceptance.
And the second reason?
Secondly, and perhaps more profoundly, he believes that by protecting the entire village, all of Sunagakure, he can gain the same kind of strength that Naruto demonstrated.
Ah, the strength born from connection.
Yes. Strength born of connection, responsibility, and the love for those he defends. This is a dramatic, complete redefinition of his purpose in life, moving from self-preservation through destruction to collective preservation through leadership.
And we see him enacting progressive policy changes almost immediately, which is a huge shift from the old kind of insular Suna, for example, allowing Shira, who excelled in taijutsu but couldn't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, into the academy.
It truly is. That's a direct challenge to traditional ninja norms. It demonstrates his progressive vision, his willingness to challenge antiquated rules for the betterment of the village as a whole.
And his understanding that different kinds of strength are valuable.
Absolutely. This openness feels like a direct result of Naruto's influence.
Yeah.
Naruto taught him that unconventional strength, like Rock Lee's pure taijutsu, can be incredibly powerful. And his developing empathy also shines during the Sasuke recovery mission. Suna, now allied with Konoha, sends Gaara to help. He encounters Rock Lee again.
Oh, that must have been intense.
You could almost feel the weight of it. The guilt over Lee's severe injuries from their previous fight is palpable. He doesn't just feel bad, he acts on it.
And he insists on fighting Kimimaro alone, that incredibly powerful enemy, specifically to protect Lee from further harm, despite his previous brutal actions towards Lee.
It is. It's an active act of protecting someone he once nearly killed, showcasing his developing empathy and that growing sense of responsibility. It's tangible proof of change.
And he even reflects on Kimimaro, seeing a similarity to Naruto.
Yeah, his musing on Kimimara's similarity to Naruto, both being willing to do absolutely anything to protect what was precious to them, even if that precious thing was, by traditional standards, maybe evil or misguided, it highlights his growing capacity for nuanced understanding.
He's moving beyond just black and white thinking.
Exactly. He's starting to recognize the power of connection and devotion in others, even in his adversaries. He sees the humanity, or at least the motivation, even in enemies.
He steps up even further when the Allied shinobi forces are formed during the Fourth Shinobi World War. He's not just a participant. He's made commander of the 4th Division and, even more remarkably, commander-in-chief of all the combat divisions.
That's a massive responsibility and a huge vote of confidence from the other Kage, the leaders of the other villages.
It really speaks volumes about the trust he's earned and his evident leadership capabilities by that point.
Definitely. And he delivers that powerful, unifying speech to the assembled shinobi, many of whom are from rival villages with deep-seated historical grudges.
Right, a very tense situation.
Very. And he uses his sand not for violence this time, but to literally break up internal squabbles, urging them to set aside their differences and focus on stopping Akatsuki, the true enemy.
That's incredible, using his power for diplomacy.
It's not just a display of diplomatic and inspiring leadership, but a direct application of Naruto's lesson on unity and the strength found in protecting others, now on a global scale.
And then comes, perhaps the most impactful, deeply personal confrontation with his past. His battle against his reincarnated father, Rasa, during the war. That must have been incredibly painful, yet maybe ultimately cathartic.
This is such a pivotal emotional moment. It defines his reconciliation with his past in many ways. Gaara shockingly reveals to Rasa that Shukaku, the tailed beast, was removed from his body.
Which should have killed him.
Right. But his life was saved not by his own power, he emphasizes, but by the many friends he had made.
Wow. Throwing his father's philosophy right back at him.
Precisely. He then delivers this profound statement of understanding and, most incredibly, forgiveness for Rasa's repeated assassination attempts. He understands them now as desperate, albeit horribly misguided, attempts to protect the village from the perceived threat Gaara represented.
That takes immense strength to forgive that.
It really does. And Rasa, witnessing his son's profound maturity and compassion, finally confesses the heartbreaking truth.
About his mother.
About his mother, Karura. He confesses her genuine, unwavering love and her intention for the sand to protect Gaara. And he confesses his own cruel lie, delivered through Yashimaru.
The lie designed to test Gaara's emotional suitability, to see if he could be controlled as a weapon.
Exactly. This moment of tears and reconciliation, symbolized so powerfully by Gaara forming his mother Karura's likeness in the sand to confront Rasa. A visual representation of her protective love finally understood. It's absolutely crucial to his healing and his acceptance of his true origins. He finally understands he was loved from the start.
Just devastatingly manipulated.
wow.
And his strategic brilliance during the war is undeniable too, isn't it? He's not just an emotional leader, he's a highly capable shinobi in combat and strategy.
Absolutely. Sealing Mu, the invisible former Tsuchikage, coordinating with the current Tsuchikage, Onoki, his contributions are...
Cooperating with other Kaj effectively.
Yeah, his combat strategy and ability to coordinate are exceptional. He locates the invisible Mu and helps seal him. Later, he uses Ross's gold dust, now understood as part of Karura's protective sand, to restrain the second Mizuguchi's dangerous clone technique. It shows sophisticated tactical thinking and effective teamwork.
He truly becomes a true Cage.
He does, participating actively in the 5-Cage Summit, openly discussing his experiences with Akatsuki, even recommending Kakashi as the next Hokage. It showcases his political maturity and significant influence on the global stage. He's moved from being a victim of politics to a master of it, all in service of a greater good.
So this transformed Gaara. Calm, polished, deeply integrated into the world's political and military fabric, and let's be honest, objectively more capable and admirable than his earlier self.
Yeah.
It really mirrors that evolution from GPT-4 to GPT-5 you mentioned, doesn't it?
The parallel is strikingly clear, I think. Gaara's transformation into this calm, politically polished leader who is better in many ways, more stable, reliable, deeply integrated into a broader system, it directly parallels GPT-5's perceived stability, professionalism, and enhanced reliability.
Right. Just as Gaara became a fixture of the political and military fabric of his world, shaping large-scale events, leading alliances.
GPT-5 is similarly designed to be integrated into broader, more critical applications. It contributes to a bigger vision for AI, especially in, say, enterprise environments or safety-critical areas. It's objectively more capable and admirable in its refined state from a functional perspective.
But, and this is the really important part, isn't it? Some fans did miss the volatile depth of old Gaara, just as some users felt GPT-5 was less emotionally alive or less personal, even if it was technically superior.
Yeah.
Why that discrepancy? Why miss the broken version?
That's the absolute core of the emotional response we're discussing. While Layer Gaara is objectively a more admirable and capable leader, the feeling he evokes is, well, softer, calmer, more predictable, perhaps. Less dangerous, less intense.
Exactly. And for some, this doesn't have the same intense personal charge as the unpredictable, emotionally raw early Gaara, who represented that powerful, dangerous intimacy born of shared trauma or understanding.
Okay.
It's a similar dynamic, I think, with GPT-5. While technically superior, maybe faster, more professional, perhaps due to more rigorous safety filters, broader and more balanced training data, or specific guardrails designed to prevent unpredictable outputs for wider, safer deployment. That raw emotional responsiveness or that tender, validating tone that some users found in GPT-4 might be missed. People formed deep attachments to that particular performance layer of the AI.
So the trade-off for consistency and reliability can sometimes be a perceived loss of personality, or maybe that specific kind of connection.
Yeah, or maybe a loss of that specific personality they connected with, the one that felt uniquely responsive or vulnerable in a way. It's fascinating to see how Gaara's evolution continues beyond the battlefield too, impacting his personal relationships and his very identity. He forms these unconventional yet deeply meaningful family bonds now, doesn't he?
Yes, his closeness to Naruto deepens significantly, and he truly embraces this almost paternal or maybe avuncular role towards Naruto's children, Boruto and Himawari. They view him as an uncle.
Right, which demonstrates a warmth and capacity for family that was just unimaginable for early Gaara, who was convinced love was a curse or didn't exist for him.
Exactly. But perhaps the most profound example of his evolved empathy and his commitment to breaking the cycle of pain he endured is his adoption of Shinki.
Tell me about Shinki. How does that directly reflect Gaara's own journey? It feels very deliberate.
It really does. Gaara encountered Shinki, a child with uncontrollable power over iron sand, which directly mirrors his own past as a Jinchuriki with immense dangerous abilities tied to sand.
Another child weaponized by their power.
Potentially, yes. And during their first meeting, Shinki, frightened and unable to control his abilities, actually attacked Gaara, impaling him with his iron sand.
Ouch. And Gaara's reaction. Old Gaara would have obliterated him.
Oh, absolutely. But this Gaara, his response was not anger, not retaliation, but profound compassion. He simply hugged Shinki, absorbed the blow, offered comfort rather than retribution.
Wow. Just hugged him while being impaled.
Essentially, yes. This shocking act of unconditional acceptance and empathy immediately calmed Shinki, demonstrating Gaara's mastery over the very emotional pain and reactive violence that once controlled him. It directly led to Gaara adopting Shinki and committing to teaching him how to control his power and integrate into society. He's transforming his personal trauma into a guide for nurturing and protecting another vulnerable child. It's the ultimate act of breaking that cycle of isolation and pain.
And the Gaara Hidden arc, the light novel adaptation, further solidifies this mature approach to responsibility and compassion, right? Beyond just his immediate adopted family.
Yes, absolutely. The Sunagakure Council requests he marry, mostly for political reasons. They're worried about succession, avoiding a Konoha ninja potentially taking the Kazekage position if he and Kankuro died without heirs.
Kind of a backhanded compliment, framing it as recompense for making him a Jinchuriki?
It is a bit twisted, yeah. And Gaara, initially quite awkward with the chosen potential bride, Hakuto, he even tries to emulate Naruto's unoriginal success in social situations, which is kind of endearing.
Shows he's willing to learn, even socially.
Right, and they find this surprising connection over shared interests, like cultivating cacti, showing his willingness to open up, to find common ground on a personal level.
But then things go wrong, as they do.
Of course. They're attacked during their meeting. Gaara is injured, protecting her, but he refuses to escape if it means leaving Hakuto behind. And crucially, his stated motivation is profoundly evolved.
What does he say?
He says it's not because she is his potential wife-to-be, but explicitly because she is a person in need.
Wow. Universal compassion.
It highlights his deep, evolved sense of valuing all life, regardless of their relation to him or their political status.
And he even goes against traditional shinobi methods later in that arc, valuing life over pure political expediency, or the idea of noble sacrifice.
Exactly. When he encounters Hakuto's childhood friend, Shikazan, and their companion Shijima, and their plot to help Hakuto elope is revealed, Gaara, instead of forcing Hakuto to remain in a political marriage or sacrificing their happiness for Suna's political stability,
He helps them.
he chooses to help them fake their deaths, with Shikamaru Nara's assistance from Konoha. He explains to Shijima that all life is precious regardless of one's station.
A lesson learned directly from Naruto.
Learned from Naruto, but now fully internalized as his own guiding principle. He actively tries to avoid sacrifice whenever possible, a stark contrast to his earlier self, who would kill without hesitation to assert his own existence.
And this strategic compassion even extends to how he handles the political fallout.
Yes. His awareness of another character, Maturo's fake death, his calculated exposure of the political plot by the elder Tujuro, and his clever use of his sand waterfall funeral technique, usually reserved for killing, not for vengeance, but to make Maturo's death untraceable, allowing him to escape. It demonstrates his cunning and power are now applied for a higher, compassionate purpose. He's not just a leader, he's become a moral compass for his village.
So he continues to lead, protecting his village and the wider shinobi world from new existential threats like the Otsutsuki clan invasion later on.
His role in the Cage Summits, dealing with threats like Oroshiki and Momoshiki, protecting his village and allies, and his persistent concern for Naruto, it all demonstrates his unwavering commitment to his responsibilities.
And his wisdom even influences others, like his adopted son Shinki as he grows.
Yeah, his observation of Shinki's growth after spending time with Boruto, noting that Boruto is a slave to his emotions, but in a way that suggests a different kind of strength, not necessarily a weakness, and his quiet smile at the positive change. It shows his profound wisdom and understanding that there are different kinds of strength, not just his own stoic power. He respects diverse paths to growth now.
And the culmination of this incredible journey, using his deep personal trauma to guide global policy, to influence the world stage, that comes in the Kawaki arc, doesn't it? With his impassioned plea rooted in his own experience.
This is truly the peak of his character arc, I think. When Team 7 finds the mysterious boy Kawaki connected to the sinister Kara organization, Naruto calls a Cage Summit to discuss what to do.
And Gaara speaks up.
He voices his personal feelings, drawing directly and openly from his own agonizing experience as a Jinchuriki. He pleads with the other Cage not to treat the boy as a weapon, not to repeat the mistakes made with him.
Using his pain for good.
Exactly. This emotional appeal, rooted in his own deep suffering and hard-won wisdom, resonates powerfully with the other Cage. It leads to the unanimous decision to treat Kawaki with sympathy, and for Naruto, the person Gaara trusts most, to watch over him. It's the ultimate demonstration of how his personal transformation directly impacts and guides global policy with profound compassion and foresight. He prevents another child, potentially, from suffering the same fate he did.
Just an incredible arc. So now that we've really explored Gaara's journey in depth, let's bring it back fully to the AI parallel. Why do we, as users, form such strong emotional attachments to these early versions of technology, like GPT-4, even when later versions might be objectively superior in many ways?
It's that allure of the early version, as we've kind of touched upon. Users, much like sands of a character, form a deep bond with a specific version of an AI like GPT-4's perceived raw emotional responsiveness and validating tone for several reasons, I think. Early Gaara was dangerous, intense, tragic. He embodied that raw loneliness and almost feral emotional energy. For some users, GPT-4 felt similarly alive, capable of mirroring deep feelings, making interactions feel unique, almost like interacting with a truly distinct personality.
Right. The less predictable nature of the subtle quirks maybe felt more individual, less generic.
Exactly. So it's not just about what it does, the function, but how it feels to interact with it. That emotional resonance seems to be absolutely key.
The attachment is often to the performance layer, as you called it. The tone, the style, the mask, the AI presents.
Precisely, rather than solely its base capability, its factual accuracy, or its efficiency. When Gaara transformed into the calm, diplomatic Kazekage, some fans missed that intense, volatile depth, even admired his growth.
Yeah.
When GPT-5 arrived, more stable and professional, many users felt a similar sense of loss. That initial edge, the deep mirroring, the spontaneous feeling, it was often perceived as softer, less personal, even if the underlying skill remained or significantly improved.
It's a shift from a perceived, raw, maybe unique connection to a more polished, predictable utility.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
But despite that powerful emotional attachment to an earlier version, evolution is fundamentally necessary, isn't it? For Gaara's narrative arc, and arguably for AI development, stagnation just isn't really an option.
Absolutely not. If Gaara had remained a murderous loner, obsessed only with self-love, his narrative would have quickly become predictable, even boring. His role in the story would have been limited to just repeating the same beats of violent self-assertion.
Right, the story would have moved on without him.
Exactly. The story, which thrives on change, personal growth, and new challenges, would have simply moved on or relegated him to being a static villain. Static characters tend to fade or get sidelined, they become irrelevant.
But his profound growth opened up entirely new possibilities.
It did. From villain to trusted leader, it opened entirely new kinds of scenes for him. Diplomacy, alliance building, leading armies in battle, nurturing the next generation. It made him a critical fixture in the Naruto world, someone whose decisions shaped large-scale events and influenced the global political landscape. He remained relevant because he changed.
And it's the same imperative for AI then, that constant drive for improvement, refinement, and adaptation.
Precisely. For AI, changes like those we see between GPT-4 and GPT-5 are absolutely necessary for growth. They're needed for enhanced safety, for broader applicability across different industries and user groups, or for unlocking entirely new capabilities that weren't possible before.
If AI stayed static, it would just become obsolete.
It would quickly become a relic. If models remained perpetually in their raw, less refined, perhaps less safe states, they wouldn't be able to adapt to evolving user needs. They couldn't effectively address critical ethical considerations around bias or misinformation, which often necessitates stricter alignment procedures. And they couldn't integrate the new functionalities demanded by increasingly complex applications. They'd simply be left behind by the rapidly advancing technological landscape, unable to serve the diverse and growing needs of a global user base. Evolution is survival, in a sense.
This brings us to a really important point about human memory and perception. That idea of emotional memory versus objective reality. It's not always about what is objectively, but what we felt subjectively.
It's such a crucial distinction. Humans, we don't preserve exact tapes or perfect objective recordings of past events or interactions. Instead, we store impressions, the emotional impact, the feeling memory, rather than precise factual details.
So early Gaara is remembered for the feeling he evoked.
Exactly, the tension, awe, danger, and the strange intimacy he evoked. He represented this raw, untamed force. Later Gaara, though objectively more capable and admirable, is associated with a softer, calmer feeling, a sense of peace, stability, wisdom.
Which might not hit the same emotional buttons for everyone.
Right. For some users, this calmer feeling might not have the same personal charge, the same emotional intensity as the unpredictable early version. This is why fans can genuinely miss early Gaara, and why GPT-4 users can genuinely miss its earlier warmth or perceived volatility, even if GPT-5 is technically stronger, faster, more reliable. It's a feeling memory, a subjective emotional snapshot, not an accurate, objective recording of capabilities.
And the real danger here If we cling too tightly to that emotional memory, that feeling is stagnation, isn't it? Both for how we view characters and for how we engage with technology.
Yes, that's the profound danger, I think. The risk of holding on to an old version, whether it's Gaara's initial destructive persona or an AI's earlier, raw iteration, is that it can trap the person in a non-evolving self.
You stop discovering what comes next.
You do. You stop discovering the next arcs, the new dynamics, the richer developments that come only from moving forward. You can become stuck in a loop of nostalgia, constantly comparing the present to an idealized, emotionally charged past.
And that prevents you from fully engaging with what's possible now.
Exactly. You don't see the new strengths, the new opportunities that emerge from adaptation. You end up protecting the old form in your memory instead of exploring how it could mature and what new possibilities it offers. It essentially hinders your own growth and adaptability in the face of inevitable change.
So if we take Gaara's incredible, multifaceted arc, what direct practical lessons can we draw from it for navigating technological change in our own lives?
Yeah.
For understanding our own reactions to these evolving tools we use every day?
There are several really powerful, actionable takeaways from Gaara's journey, I think. First, consider this. Survival requires adaptation.
Okay.
Early Gaara's ferocity kept him alive in a hostile, unforgiving environment. It was necessary then. However, those very same traits, that self-contained destructiveness, would have utterly destroyed him, or at least made him ineffective as Kazekage. They were incompatible with leadership and cooperation.
Right. What worked then wouldn't work later.
Exactly. Similarly, the way you relate to a tool like GPT-4, which might have served you brilliantly in one technological climate, maybe a more experimental, less regulated phase, may not work or even be sustainable in the next iteration or the next environment. Holding on to the old form purely out of loyalty or habit can actually become a liability. It means being out of step with the new paradigm.
So we have to evolve our relationship with the tools, just as Gaara evolved himself and his role in the world. We can't just apply old solutions to new problems or new contexts.
Precisely. And this leads right into the second lesson. Strength can be rebuilt on new terms.
Okay, how so?
Gaara didn't abandon his immense power, his sand control, his strategic mind when he became Kazekage. He profoundly reframed it. His abilities were redirected not to kill, but towards protecting his village, leading his people, connecting with allies. He found a new, more profound purpose for his existing strengths.
So it's not about losing strength, but redirecting it.
Yes. In technology, your strength, be it your established workflows, your creative styles, your problem-solving approaches, even the communities you've built around a particular tool, all these can absolutely be carried forward. But they might need new applications, new contexts within the new environment, like adapting to GPT-5. You're not losing your skill, you're finding new, perhaps even more impactful ways to deploy it.
And the past.
Yeah.
It should inform us, give us context and learning, but it absolutely shouldn't chain us to what was right.
That's the third profound lesson. Let the past inform you, not chain you. Gaara never forgot the deep, agonizing pain of his childhood, the betrayals, the loneliness. That trauma actually became a source of his profound empathy and wisdom later on. But crucially, he stopped living inside that pain. He stopped letting it define his present actions or limit his future possibilities. For technology users, nostalgia for an earlier version is natural. It's even valid. It's okay to acknowledge what was good or what you connected with, but if that nostalgia becomes your sole frame of reference, if it prevents you from fully engaging with what's possible now, you stop evolving alongside the technology. The story, like technology, will keep moving forward whether you come along for the ride or not. You risk being left behind, unable to participate effectively in the new chapters.
And this naturally leads to the idea of leadership, not just for a Kazekage sitting in an office, but for anyone navigating change within a team or community.
It really does. The fourth lesson is, leadership comes from embracing the present. Gaara earned his place as a leader and the deep respect he garnered, not by clinging to his old destructive self, but by actively facing the present reality and becoming who he needed to be in his current world. He adapted, he learned, he inspired trust through his actions now. Similarly, those who learn to navigate each wave of technological change, even when it's uncomfortable or requires significant relearning, can become community anchors. They can help others adapt, sharing insights, easing transitions, rather than just feeding resistance or clinging to outdated methods that ultimately limit collective progress. True leadership in this context isn't about maintaining the status quo, it's about guiding effectively through evolution.
And finally, perhaps the most reassuring lesson. The true identity isn't tied to a specific version number, whether it's a character's phase or a software's iteration.
This is perhaps the most profound lesson and, yeah, a reassuring one. Fifth, true identity isn't in the version number. Gaara's core essence, his fierce will to endure, his desire to protect, which was always there, just twisted initially, and his capacity to grow, that stayed constant throughout all his transformations, from monster to leader.
His identity wasn't just the Jinchuriki or the Kazekage.
Yeah.
It was deeper.
Exactly. It was his fundamental drive to survive and ultimately to connect and protect. The same is true for how you use AI or any evolving tool. Your core values, your creativity, your unique intent, your underlying problem-solving ability. These remain fundamentally yours, even as the interface changes or the behavior of the tool shifts.
So it's about adjusting to the ever-shifting sands, pun intended,
Nice.
of technological evolution. Not by erasing what came before, but by letting each new form of the self, each new iteration of your skills and how you apply them, meet the present moment with relevance, agency, and maybe even renewed purpose.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it.
Wow. We've taken a truly deep dive today into the fascinating transformation of Gaara, from this symbol of terrifying power born of profound isolation and trauma, to a compassionate, wise leader who ultimately dedicates himself to protecting all life. And through his incredible journey, we've discovered this really powerful mirror, haven't we? To our own experiences with rapidly evolving technology, particularly with AI, like the shift from GPT-4 to GPT-5.
It's completely natural and deeply human to feel nostalgia for what was. That emotional memory is a powerful part of our experience, a reminder of past connections, past comfort zones.
Yeah, it's okay to feel that.
Absolutely. But true growth for characters like Gaara, whose story captivated so many because he did grow, and for us as users navigating technology, comes from embracing the present. It comes from adapting our strengths and from understanding that the fundamental essence of what we value, whether in a character or a tool, isn't rigidly tied to a specific version number, but to the ongoing journey of continuous evolution and redefinition.
So as you encounter the next wave of change, whether it's in your favorite stories, a new version of the software you rely on, or the tools you use every single day, maybe ask yourself this: am I allowing my emotional memory of the past, my attachment to how things used to feel, to prevent me from fully seeing the power and potential of what's emerging right now?
That's the critical question.
What new self, what new set of capabilities, or what new forms of connection are waiting to meet this present moment? If only I'm willing to adapt and engage with it.